Welcome back. We are ACI Course 13, Class 5. It's June 21st, 2026, where I am, and this day is going on forever. Our longest day. I love it. So let's gather our minds here as we usually do. Please bring your attention to your breath until you hear from me again. Now, and bring to mind that being who for you is a manifestation of ultimate love, ultimate compassion, ultimate wisdom. And there they are with you, just by way of your thinking of them. They are gazing at you with their unconditional love for you, smiling at you with their holy great compassion, their wisdom radiating from them, that beautiful golden glow encompassing you in its light. And then we hear them say, bring to mind someone you know who's hurting in some way. Feel how much you would like to be able to help them. Recognize how the worldly ways we try fall short. How wonderful it will be when we can also help in some deep and ultimate way, a way through which they will go on to stop their distress forever. Deep down, we know this is possible. Studying emptiness and dependent origination, we glimpse how it's possible. And so I invite you to grow that wish into a longing. And that longing into an intention. And with that intention, return our minds back to our precious holy being. We know that they know what we need to know, what we need to learn yet, what we need to do yet, to become one who can help this other in this deep and ultimate way. And so we ask them, please, 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 teach me that, show me that. Help me become that. And they are so happy that we've asked. Of course, they agree. Our gratitude arises. We want to offer them something exquisite. And so we think of the pure world they are teaching us how to create. We imagine we can hold it in our hands and we offer it to them, following it with our promise to practice what they teach us, using our refuge prayer to make our promise. Here is the great earth, filled with fragrant incense and covered with a blanket of flowers. The great mountain, 4 lands, wearing the jewel of the sun and the moon. In my mind, I make them the paradise of a Buddha and offer it all to you. By this deed, may every living being experience the pure world. Idam Guru Ratna Mandala Kam Nirayatayami. I go for refuge until I am enlightened through the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community. Through the merit that I do in sharing this class and the rest, may we reach Buddhahood for the sake of every living being. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community. Through the merit that I do in sharing this class and the rest, may we reach Buddhahood for the sake of every living being. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community. Through the merit that I do in sharing this class and the rest, may all beings totally awaken for the benefit of every single other. Ugh, I'm suddenly so sleepy. So this is our class 5 out of 10, and I have 30 pages of notes. I'm not going to even try to complete that in one class because all our heads will pop. So I'll split it wherever it ends up splitting at the end of our time. And then that made me look at our schedule, and with the 5 houses program coming in July, we'll be off on the 9th and the 12th. And I'd like for us to come back on the 16th, unless we're all going to be traveling on that day. But by then we should all be back, right? If anybody's going to Malaysia, I am not. So I'll be here. So just check, make sure you've got the schedule, that those 2 Thursdays, the 9th and it's not 2 Thursdays. The 9th is a Thursday and the 12th is a Sunday, right? No class on those 2 days. Otherwise, we should be able to do it. Okay. So last class, we learned about causes and results. And we learned that the definition of a material cause is something that comes before, right? Remember, when we're playing this game with debate, the first thing the person says is always subtly wrong in some way. So you're welcome to just go, no. But you want to kind of know why you're disagreeing if you can. So I'll start again. The definition of a material cause we learned is something that comes before. But what's wrong with that is it's not specific enough, because the example before was the French Revolution came before the building of my house. But that doesn't make it a cause for my house. It does, however, make it a contributing factor because it didn't block my house, but that's a different story. It's not what we're asking. So back to the quiz question. The definition of a material cause is something that comes before. Claire is saying, no, that your reason is wrong. Oh, you're saying there's another definition for material cause. So be careful, because if you say yes, then you're responsible for giving the answer. So you think, what did we learn? What was on the quiz? The definition of a material cause is anything which brings about a working thing primarily as a continuation of the same material. So that would be your answer, right? The actual definition. And the difference, the definition of a material cause is something that came before. It's just incomplete, right? It is something that comes before, but more specifically, anything which brings about a working thing primarily as a continuation of the same stuff. Now, the ramification of understanding material cause is when we apply it to our mind, the existence of our mind, because we have one now, which we know, personal experience. It has to be a result of a moment before, sometime before, that was of the same stuff. So what is the stuff of your mind, your consciousness? That, right? That which is clear and aware. So that which is clear and aware flops over into that which is clear and aware. And if we keep tracking it back, we'll find, well, you can never find a current moment of that which is clear and aware that isn't the result of some previous that which was clear and aware. And it shows us, we can reveal to ourselves the continuing from the past of our mind, because we're having a valid experience of it now. And then when we use that same explanation of result, it'll take us the other direction. Not that it takes us into the future, but it shows us that there can never be a moment of my current mind that doesn't serve as the material stuff that will flop over into a new moment of current mind. And so therefore, my mind, this mind, will never cease to be. Will it cease to be Sarani's mind? Yes. But it will always be this subject side, as will yours. So yes, material causes help us understand other things as well. But of all the ways we'll use material cause, this one about proving to ourselves the ongoing spaghetti noodle of our own mind is pretty important. Then we were given the definition of a correct reason. And the definition of a correct reason is any reason I give, right? No, you're saying there's a different definition for correct reason? Yes. That means, okay, I'll take over. So you're saying the definition of correct reason is when the reason I give fits for what the other person believes. No, it fits for what I believe. No, there's some other definition. It has to fit for some other reason to make it a correct reason. Who's going to nod their head? I will. The definition of a correct reason is a reason where the three relationships hold. Three relationships. The three relationships of establishing that there is a relationship between the subject we're talking about and the reason we give about the assertion. We check statement one with statement three, and is there a relationship? Like, consider sound. It's a changing thing because it's made. Is there a relationship between being sound and being made? It's like, yeah, there is. What if we were to say, consider sound? It's a changing thing because it's something that I can see. Sound, something we see. No relationship there. So who cares what I say about sound? My reason won't prove it. Consider Chinese food. We should go out to eat there because I said so. Chinese food, I said so. Is there a relationship? Yeah, I said, let's go for Chinese food, right? There is a relationship there. Does that necessarily mean that that's the best place for us to go? But I didn't say anything about best place. I just said, let's go for Chinese food. Why? Because I said so. And it sounds like, well, does that prove that we should go there? Does that document that we should go there? To the person who doesn't like Chinese food, right? They're going to come back and say, yeah, you said, let's go for Chinese food, implying, I guess, that it would be the best thing for us to do. But then we check the second relationship, the relationship called the positive necessity, which specifically means if our statement, the reason, were true, what would that necessarily say about our statement number two, the assertion we've made? So again, we're not checking in our human reality. We are thinking logically, the ramifications of the statement, the reason, if it were true. Would it necessarily mean that our assertion were true? So back to consider sounds. They are changing things because they are made. We already decided that there is a relationship between the topic sound and being made our reason, 1 and 3. So we can go on. Now let's check. Is it such that if it's a made thing, it necessarily must be a changing thing? It like doesn't really matter whether we're talking about sound or popsicles. If something's made, is it necessarily a changing thing? Yeah, because we understand what it means to be made and we understand what it means to be changing. And so we can logically say, yes, it would be true that anything that's made must also be changing. So our statement number two, called the positive necessity, holds. If it didn't hold, then we wouldn't even bother to check the third relationship for a correct reason because we've already shown our reason is incorrect. So no need. So if so far it's still correct, then we go to the third relationship that must hold, and it's called the relationship of negative necessity. And for that one, we look at statement number 2, our assertion. And again, if we negate the assertion and think of the ramifications of that, what necessarily happens to statement number 3, our reason? If by negating the assertion, it necessarily negates the reason, then our relationship holds. So consider sound. It's a changing thing because it's made. The third relationship is to negate statement 2 and see if that necessarily negates statement 3, which is why it's called the negative necessity. The necessity of the relationship that gets negated if you negate the assertion. So if a thing is not changing, can it ever be a thing which is made? No, because every changing thing, something influences it to change, and then it changes, and in changing, it has changed something else. So even if the change is just this infinitesimal something, it makes something else happen and it got made in doing so. So we just showed that being a made thing is necessarily a changing thing. And now we revealed that if something's not a changing thing, it cannot be a made thing. And because sound has a relationship with being made, it then now must have this relationship such that if it's made, it must be changing. And if it's not changing, it couldn't be made. And that means it can't make anything up. And that's where the argument is supposed to help the other person who understands all this about sound and believes that the sound ohm is the underlying source of all existence. It's up to them to think, oh, well, then what about ohm? Ohm's this unchanging source of everything. Somehow it's making everything, but it itself isn't changing. There's something wrong with that picture. So either ohm is a changing thing and it's the source of the universe, that might work, or it's an unchanging thing and it's not the source of the universe. So it's up to them. It's not up to us to show it to them. We already showed them. And then they think the rest of it through. So that's the idea for us, is to learn our own way of logicking through the ramifications of things. And then we keep following the thread to come to our own new conclusion about something that we believed in one way. Now, maybe we'll show that we were correct. Or maybe we'll show that, oh, no, I was misunderstanding. The beauty of this system, once we really understand it, really have a grasp on how to use it, which I'm not great at it, but I do see how indispensable it is when we understand how to apply these three relationships. And those are not always absolutely clear. We'll see in the future examples that we give, is how do we decide if there really is a relationship between statement 1 and statement 3? And what if in our statement 3, we've got 3 or 4 different parts to it? Which one are we talking about, right? We learn to check them all. I want to also say that these two words, the positive necessity and the negative necessity, later on in my chewing on all of this in retreat, those two words would pop up in my mind when I was trying to work out this relationship between the appearance of things and their emptiness, and watching my mind toggle between the two of them and trying so desperately to be able to hold them both. To see one is to see the other. And I landed on how powerful is this idea of the positive necessity and the negative necessity, because it's saying to me that when you have a positive, meaning a presence, it is absolutely necessary that you have some absence there at the same time. And you can't have an absence there of anything unless you have the presence. So this positive necessity and negative necessity, we come to see that they are those two sides of one coin. And what we're planting the seeds to get to is a place where we are able to experience the whole coin with both sides, rather than the way we are now. You can look at the heads or you can look at the tails, but you can't experience them both at the same time. But we have the capacity to experience them both at the same time. That's Buddhahood. But we can do it. And right here in logic, like preliminary early logic, we're learning words that are planting seeds in our minds, concept that are planting seeds in our minds that are already pushing us in the direction that Buddha, right, is helping us to go. I just like when that came clear to me, it was like, oh man, the depth of these sutra teachings is extraordinary. So I just share because it took me so long, and I hope I can save you some frustration. Okay, so tonight's class is about subjects and objects. Share, screen share. I think it's a really fun exploration. In particular, the way the Tibetans use the words. Uh, it's still like twist my brain into knots. So the topic we are discussing is Yul and Yul Chen. Yul means objects. Yul Chen means objects possessing, which in English is totally awkward. It's meant to mean that which possesses the object, which we can interpret to mean that which holds the object, which means that which is perceiving the object. But there must be a reason why they call it the object possessing. Possessing seems to mean it's mine. And ultimately, if we go to the punchline that we know, everything that I perceive is my karmic seeds ripening, then in a sense, they are all mine. Even what I see, what I think I see you seeing is still mine, because I don't know what you see, but I think I do. So Yul and Yul Chen. So in English, this word subject is so slippery. And Geshe was laughing about it. He says, the subject of this class that we're studying is objects and subjects, the one who holds the object. So we are the subject studying the object of objects and subjects. And it's like, okay, I'm confused already. It's like Dr. Seuss. And it's like, I don't know if other languages have that same kind of weirdness about subjects and objects, but I find it helpful to be confused about them. And then it gets even more confusing if you're in the medical system, at least the Western one, because then we say subjective, objective, assessment, and plan. That's how you write your notes. And the subjective is what the patient says, and the objective is what you see. And it's like, but wait, I'm the one who sees. I should be the subject about them, the object, and what I see. And so like, I was always confused because I had it backwards because the way medicine taught me to use subject and object. So, which one are we talking about? Yul, objects. Yul Chen, that which holds the object, that which perceives the object. This topic of understanding the relationship between the objects we experience and us experiencing them is the bridge to understanding Buddhist psychology, what they call Buddhist psychology, which is the topic of consideration called Sem and Semchen. Sem meaning mind, technically a suffering mind, and Semchen, which is mind possessor, mind holder. So when we're talking about this relationship between the mind and the one who experiences the mind, that's where psychology comes into play, apparently. And Geshe all had said he had always intended to give a class on Sem and Semchen, but I don't know that he's ever done it. It never came up in the ACIs or in the practice modules, and it never came up as a specific topic of discussion in any of our Diamond Way that I recognized anyway. And I don't ever remember a specific topic of it in any of the book Jimpas either. So don't know. Like, that's a hole in my training, it feels like to me. Okay. So they teach us Yul and Yul Chen, especially to help us improve our understanding of emptiness. And the better we understand the relationship between Yul and Yul Chen, the better we'll be able to recognize a mistaken explanation about emptiness should we hear someone give one. Geshe often says that people say that in seeing emptiness directly, your mind sinks into the object and you become one. People also in deep meditation will say, I was meditating on the tree and I became one with the tree, or on the eagle and I became one with the eagle and I was flying. We're not negating that they've had such experiences, but that experience is not revealing emptiness, the emptiness of the self or the emptiness of the object or the emptiness of the experience they're having. Okay. Yuls, objects, and the one perceiving the Yul Chen, they have to be separate. And they say every 13-year-old in the monastery can prove it because this comes so early in their training. Now, maybe they can prove it by saying it. Whether they've proved it in their conceptuality, I don't know. But again, they're planting seeds for us early on in our training to have a skill to be able to work with in order to come to show ourselves this relationship, necessary relationship, positive necessity for an existing object and a mind perceiving that existing object in order for there to be an existing object and for there to be the mind that's perceiving the existing object, right? You've got to have these two existing things happening, but they both depend on each other. So how does that work? Especially as our minds say, no, things have to go first this, then that, and then that, and then that. And yet, when we try to really pin down what comes first, the mind holding the object or the object there to be held, right? What are we going to find? Something else is going on here, right? We know the punchline, but that activity of really trying to find what we misbelieve is true is how we come to really recognize, oh my gosh, it's just ridiculous to think that there's an object that has its own nature that my own mind perceives versus an object that my mind perceives that gives it the object its objectness. Even when the object then looks like it has its own nature, our mind is even doing that. Of course it is. Which is why when that stops, the self nature of the object is just gone. All right, I'm getting ahead of myself. There are expressions like pouring water into water that's used to describe seeing emptiness directly. And they use terms like non-duality, which implies that you become one, because if you're not dual, you must be one. But those don't actually mean what they seem like they mean. It does not mean that we ever merge into oneness, because again, there can't be one without something perceiving it. And that means there's two. And that means there's three things going on, because there's the perceiving and the thing being perceived and the perceiving itself. So that's three. And then once you have three, you have the myriad of things, right? Tao Te Ching opens with that explanation. All right. So Yul Chen means the object holder, the object possessor, which is the way in Tibetan you say the subject, meaning the me part of an experience, subject. That's not how they say, I don't think that's how they say, the subject matter we're talking about today is such and such. I don't know how they say that. Yul Chen means subject, person, subject. So when we say person, also probably our mind goes human person. But technically, we're talking about any being with a consciousness. But when we're talking about logic, we are talking about a human person who can think and think these things through. But don't limit yourself to thinking all of this only pertains to human perceptions, because any consciousness is perceiving things by way of the same method as humans are. The method not meaning the exact experience, right? A being that doesn't have eyes experiences form differently than we do. It perceives form differently than we do with eyes, but they're still experiencing things in one way, believing things about it in one way, and actually experiencing their own seeds ripening. But that's getting ahead. So any person, any Yul Chen is a functioning thing, Nupo, and a changing thing, Mi Takpa, a not unchanging thing, and a positive object, meaning a presence of something. So again, with the language, when we hear positive, negative, my mind can't help but thinking good and bad. It doesn't just think, oh, presence versus absence. And we want to try to learn to trigger that first. Maybe in the context, it is meaning positive as in virtuous. But when we're like learning logic and the necessity of our words to be precise, we ourselves will start recognizing, oh, to use terms like good or bad or positive or negative, maybe I'm given the wrong impression. And maybe I need to be more precise if I'm talking about a judgment, right? Or a comparison, or am I just talking about a presence versus an absence? Okay? And yet positive and negative are used to indicate presence, positive, and absence, negative. So is emptiness a negative thing? Yeah, it's like the most precious, valuable thing we can ever experience. How can you say it's a negative thing? Do you see? That's what I mean. It's a negative in the sense that it's an absence of something, not just a raw absence, because we can't have just a raw absence. It has to be absent of something. So then, is emptiness unchanging? We know the punchline. Yes. Emptiness is either 100% present as an absence. Ow. As long as there is something present that's lacking its self-nature. Without the presence of something, there's nothing to lack its self-nature, so there's no emptiness of that thing. So our emptiness is either 100% or not at all. And that's how it is, such that emptiness can be there 100% and then not there 100% because the thing is gone. Not meaning moved away, but destroyed. When the pen is destroyed, 100% no emptiness of the pen, right? We've heard that so many times, but every time we hear it, we get it at a little deeper level, as long as we keep our minds open. So we, the meditator, who is going into the direct perception of emptiness, is a positive thing, a presence. And of course, we have our own lack of self-existence, which is our emptiness. But we cannot disappear into that emptiness because our me is a presence. So even as we are directly experiencing that absence of our own self nature, and it seems at the time like there's no subject me aware of the object emptiness, because the object emptiness is an absence and you can't perceive that with your sensories or your thought. It seems like there's no me and other, but it cannot be that we have dissolved into emptiness, because a presence cannot become an absence. The pen doesn't become emptiness when the pen disappears. It doesn't become emptiness when it appears. There just is emptiness of the pen. So we can't ever become one with emptiness if emptiness is a negative, an absence. And if our person is a presence, it is then changing millisecond by millisecond and always will. And each instant is 100% lacking its self nature. So therefore, emptiness every moment is identical and unchanging, but not permanent. Remember, Takpa means unchanging, but not necessarily permanent. All right. So as we understand Yul and Yul Chen, Geshe-la says you'll never entertain the wrong idea that a person would merge and become one with emptiness. He says, but we commonly hear that description amongst not so well-educated Buddhists, perhaps. Okay. So let's first talk about the objects. We need a definition of objects so that we all can agree what we're talking about. So they say the definition of yul, of object, is seme shelwar chawa. So it looks like it should sound Jawa, but when you listen carefully, the jaw sounds more like cha in this case. There are J's that sound like ja, but this one's cha. Seme selwar chawa. We know the word seme, valid perception. Shelwar, well, shelwar chawa means what is apprehended. So what this phrase is saying is valid perception, what is apprehended. And in English, it's like, what's that trying to say? What do we mean by valid perception? We've talked about it before. How many valid perceptions have you had today? Like probably most of them. I had 99.9%, he says, because the only time we're not having valid perception is if we are having a hallucination, if we're drunk or high. Sometimes some kind of illnesses can make us perceive things that aren't there. We can be in a situation where there's that trick of the eye, where you're sitting in traffic and the two cars are there and one car moves backwards and you swear you're going forward. Those little things. We can have not valid perceptions, but they're rare. Mostly, valid perception is given the information, given the circumstance we've received, our perception is reasonable. How many of them are correct? Now that's according to what school? To perceive an object actually as it exists depends on what we mean by to exist. What is it that exists? And high school Madhyamaka says, actually, until we have our direct perception of emptiness, we have never had a valid, correct perception ever. Not just this lifetime, but ever. We've never perceived an object that matched its real nature of the object until we've perceived emptiness directly. Lower schools don't agree. They say, no, valid perceptions are correct perceptions. And sometimes we find that they're not as valid as we thought. Sometimes they're clearly not valid because our mind's all messed up. But most of the time they're valid and correct given that we're in this material world. So remember that lower schools believe that things that function they're real. They're not self-existent because they depend on all kinds of other things. But lower school is not saying really what they all depend upon is our seeds ripening from our past behavior, right? They believe in karma, but they don't believe it to that extent that everything is my karma ripening and nothing but. That's the higher level schools. So logic is taught from that perspective where all these existing things, we think they're self-existent, and of course they're not because they rely on so many different factors. Right? And still how we relate to them is gonna help us have greater ease and progress on our practice. So they still do conclude we should avoid harming others because harming others comes back as unpleasant things for us. Real things that we experience that hurt us. It's useful. But when we're looking for ultimate reality, we'll see very quickly. It's like, that can't be the case because two of us look at the same apparent object and we see two different things. How can that be? And that's when we start moving to the higher schools. So the definition of the object, seme shalwa chawa, anything that can be apprehended by a valid perception is an object. Anything that can be apprehended by a valid perception is an object. And I don't know, I have struggled with that because is it anything that can be or anything that is being apprehended? And I'm not sure, to be honest with you. So there are synonyms for object. Means objects, as in all the objects in the world. And then yupa, which has the same root, the yu, means existing thing in the sense of any existing thing, any given existing thing that we're talking about. And then this shal cha means apprehended thing. Apprehended means perceived with our mind. Again, remember that the school we're in is the thing is here, and then we perceive it with our mind. Highest school says, can't really say the thing is there first. Information, our mind makes the pen. When you go looking for the information, there's more subtle information getting its result. But here we're at here's the object. We experience the object. Xiaoqia is the apprehended thing. They all refer to everything that exists, says Geshe-la. So these three words, Yul, Yupa, and Xiaoqia, we don't really know whether they're talking about a given thing or all existing things. We have to follow the context of the discussion in the Tibetan, apparently, and I totally rely on Geshe-la for that. So it's a big statement to say all objects, Yul, is the same as all existing things, Yupa, which is the same as anything we can perceive, Xiaoqia. So every existing object in the universe is a Yul, an object of someone's mind, an apprehension of someone's mind, being apprehended by someone's mind. So Geshe-la said, what about the cosmic dust on the other side of Pluto? Come on, who's perceiving that? That has to be there. Nobody can see that far away. And of course, this tradition says every omniscient being that exists perceives that dust on the other side of Pluto. So, of course, it exists. And I don't know, that seems like kind of a cop out to me of trying to figure out whether things exist or not. If you can always fall back on saying, well, an omniscient being sees it. But an omniscient being sees the possibility of this object being absolutely any object for any being who perceives it. So of course, they're also seeing the dust on planet Pluto because they're seeing it in this. Just because you see one thing means you see the potential to see everything. And that's as far as I can go with omniscience. So we don't really apparently have to worry about whether things exist or not, because omniscient beings keep things existing. Yeah, but what about for me? Just because an omniscient being perceives things, does that make the thing real and existing for me? Not necessarily, because I can't see their Buddha paradise, but they make it be so. So, yuls, objects, they can be divided into two types. Let me finish that and then we'll take our break. Objects of somebody's perception can be divided into working things, nupo, working thing, meaning functioning thing, and takpa, meaning unchanging things. So objects can be changing things, working things, or they can be unchanging things, not necessarily permanent. So remember when we did our consider all existing things, there are changing things and there are unchanging things. And in unchanging things, there's just a few categories, but in changing things, physical changing things, mental changing things that are not quite either one of those other two, right? So we're pulling from that to recognize that objects are in these two categories, working things and unchanging things. Now, in your student notes, if you're looking at the student notes, back in my day, those student notes had a mistake here. They say Takpa was talking about changing things, and I'm sure it was just a typo, but it wasn't caught for a long time. Now, I don't know if that's been corrected, but just look carefully at those student notes and make sure that it's consistent with your answer key and what you're hearing from class. And make a note to yourself. to correct it if it's still incorrect in the notes. So every existing thing we could ever perceive, we will ever perceive, will either be a functioning thing, which also means it's changing, it's produced, it's making something else, it's caused, it itself is caused, or an unchanging thing. And all of those changing things, all those working things, synonyms, causes, synonyms, results of things, they can be divided into 5 different kinds. And so let's take our break and we'll come back and dig into the 5 different kinds of objects, changing objects, the positive objects that we can experience. Okay, with me, please get refreshed. As will I. Okay, are we back? So we're learning about existing things because we're learning about what it means to be an object. So all changing things, all existing changing things can be found in one or the other of 5 different categories. And those 5 categories of existing things are called pumpona. We know pumpona as the 5 heaps. We've learned the 5 heaps as any given being, existing being, is made up of a mind and a body. Or you can split that further and say they're made up of the 5 heaps. And each heap, pumpo, in Sanskrit, skanda, implies there's this thing, this big thing that's made up of lots of little things of its type. That sounds familiar. Like you rake all your autumn leaves from your big yard into this great big pile. You have a big pile, but actually it's all these leaves raked all together. Right? A heap. That's what we mean by heap. And that means all those individual parts are making up this big whole. And there's no whole without the parts. And any one part doesn't make the whole. It takes all of them together, plus some other stuff, as we know. So if we learn what's meant by these 5 heaps, then we will have learned all the possible kinds of objects that can exist. So how many objects are there? As many as all existing objects in the universe. And all of these objects can be divided into the 5 parts of a person. Sageshe Michael. So it's like, wait, what? I'm me. I have my 5 heaps. Thank you very much. And then there's all those existing things in my world. Don't say all those existing things in my world are my 5 heaps. And he goes, oh, you investigate. So we have this phrase, me and my parts. And then later on, we start seeing things like me and my world. And it feels so very different to say me and my parts than to say me and my world. Because I am at least, so habituated to believing that my me, right, is in here. And so my me ends here. And between me and this, and the way I experience the this and the other, that makes up my me and my 5 heaps. My form, feeling, discriminating between things, all the other factors in my consciousness. But it feels very much limited somehow to the this thing and where it is. And then when we start talking about me and my world, whoa, that's so much bigger. However, when we're learning about objects and that we say which holds the object, but it would be better to say who holds the object. we're learning, we will recognize that, oh my gosh, those 5 heaps, my 5 heaps, they're not stuck inside here somewhere. They're not limited by this. We're talking about me and anything that I experience, anything that I can experience. So what's starting out with just a logical exploration of exploration of what we mean by things, again, plants the seeds for us to be able to expand our identity of what we mean by me and my parts, so that it becomes saying the same thing, me and my parts, me and my world. Okay. So Geshe-la said, cook it. What does it mean to say when we understand the 5 heaps, we understand all the yules in the world, all the existing objects in the world. How many existing objects are there? As many as all existing objects in the whole universe. And all these objects can be divided into the 5 parts of a person, the 5 heaps. There isn't anything anywhere else that we can experience outside of our experience of those things called the 5 heaps. And not because Buddha said so, but because of how we've ever experienced anything. And so by way of the seeds we've planted, we can't experience something that we haven't planted a seed for, can we? Like, we know the 4 laws of karma, they show up here as well as we're digging in deeply. All right, so let's start. We know the 5 heaps. The first heap, the heap of form, suk. We learn the heap of form as anything we can point to as being physical, a physical thing, like blue. You have to show it. You can't explain it. Like round. When we are talking suk as form in that way, we're really talking about things that we perceive with our eyes, shapes and colors. But there's still physical form that's experienced right differently than our eyes experience physical form. So the word suk can mean the object of the eye, only colors and shapes, but it also can be the heap of all physical matter. So physical matter that is tactile or physical matter that we hear, right? All of that can also be included in the heap of form. And then when we think of it that way, we can divide it into 2, the chi suk and the nangi suk. Chi suk means outer physical matter, outer physical form. But it's like outside what? Outside where? And again, it depends on what school that we're in. But it's defined as saying any outside means anything that's outside our consciousness, our sentience. So consciousness here, it means how do we, that which through which we are aware of something, that through which we experience something. So outer physical matter is that matter that seems outside of our sensation of it. Now, not outside our perceiving of it, but Geshe-la's example is we say we're sentient of our physical body. because you feel it, you hear it, see it, smell it, taste it, kind of. But then what about the tips of your fingernails? No, do we have feeling of the tips of our fingernails? When we hit our fingernail, it's not that the fingernail is having a sensation, we're actually sensing something back down here. Because if there was sensation in the fingernail when you cut it off and it was sitting on the table, you'd still feel it, but you don't. What about your hair? Like, where is it along the hair that you finally become conscious of it being me, a part of me? And we say, oh, well, all my hair is a part of me because it's not yours. But it's like, yeah, but what part of it feels? What part of it sensates? Not till you get to the skull, really. But then the skull's not the hair. If the hair was part of my sentience, I could cut my hair and put it on the table and I would have it would have sentience of being on the table. And it's like, that doesn't happen. So we say, oh, my sentience stops at my skin. So my hair's not part of me. My fingernails are not part of me. Are my fingernails outer objects, but my skin is not? It isn't clear what's exactly outer and what's exactly inner. However, they say it's very clear that the table, your computer, your car, the rock, the plants, there's no question that your awareness of them is as an outer object. So when we're talking Chi-Suk, we're talking things that are outside or beyond the things that we ourselves physically sensate, and they are the objects that have no sentience. That's what we mean by outer object. Objects with no sentience, none of their own. We perceive them. Outer object. Then Nangisuk is the inner physical matter. And then they make this distinction by saying, we really, really do mean inner, as in the tissue of the eye faculty, the tissue of the retina and the optic nerve and the brain part that does that function. All of those physical cells that are the detecting of information happening. But then they say, but wait, if we're saying outer physical stuff is different, is a different suk, different heap of form than my own body, my own inner heap, isn't the wall, like, look at the wall in your room, isn't it part of your experiential reality right now? And so can't we really say that because it's part of my experience at the moment, it's as much a part of me as this thing is a part of me, meaning my hand, which also has some distance from my awareness. Like, what's the difference between the wall and my hand? And Master Shantideva helped us explore that. It's, well, I sensate when something or somebody touches my hand, and I don't sensate when somebody touches the wall. Somebody hits the wall with the hammer, I don't go out. And Master Shantideva, where he was using it for a different reason, he said, you can decide that damage to an outer thing versus damage to your own thing are as equally unacceptable, and choose your response accordingly. But we're looking at it from the perspective of what do we use to make the distinction in our experience between me and my experience and me and my experience, like my experience of my own body versus my experience of the pet. Why are we making a distinction between those two different things? They're being perceived through the same process. Hmm. So the idea here is that we clarify what is meant by these 5 heaps related to our own personal being. And then we expand that to recognize how those heaps can also refer to a bigger aspect of our experience. And then once we're clear on what's meant by these 5 heaps, we can use that understanding to go looking for the yulchen, the object holder, meaning our me, to see where exactly is that me, the one that we're so sure of has its own nature that suffers and is happy and wants to stop suffering and wants to get what it wants. Where is that? Where is it to be found? It's an existing thing. It needs to be found in one of those 5 heaps. If we can find it, then we can know better how to use it or enjoy it or work with it. And of course, we know the punchline. We're going to go looking in all these places that we've established are the only existing places for existing objects. And we're going to look for our me in every single one. And when we find, oh my gosh, I can't find a me there, not in any of them, and there's no place else for the me to be, we come across the no self-existent me. Do we come across no me at all? No, actually. In the process of doing that, we come to recognize better what we mean by me that we didn't understand before. So that's the long-term result of learning all these details that logic teaches us about valid perception. That isn't just about logic. It's about the background information that we chew on and chew on and chew on as we get a more and more clear understanding of our me and my parts, my me and my heaps, my me and my world, to come to see both the positive necessity and the negative necessity, so that we can understand our own true nature better, which is the point of all of this. All right. The first Panchen Lama, he says, you want to know what if? You want to find your me that you're looking for? Said, think of what it feels like when somebody blames you for something you didn't do. Like, Sarani, you stole my purse. I did not. Like that instant me that's been accused of something. He says that's the best way to find our self-existent me, which is actually a non-existent thing, but something we believe in so strongly that it reacts like that. He says, get a hold of that. And that's what you go looking for in all these different heaps, only defined. Okay. Angela says again, when we actually do this, go looking for our me in those 5 different heaps. It's like looking for a purple 2-headed full-sized elephant in each of your rooms at home. You're so convinced that it is there that you have to go looking under the bed and in the refrigerator and behind the closet doors. But once you've looked everywhere and you see that it's not there, you recognize that, oh, it was never there in the first place because it doesn't exist at all. And it seems like a silly example because who would even bother to go looking for a purple elephant? But our belief in the I didn't do that, that me, is so strong. It's as if we believe that the 2-headed purple elephant could be in our room. And that's why we need to go looking. That's why we do need to go and identify these different places where it could be and learn how to check to see if it is there. Oof. Is there a me that can exist independent of one of those 5 heaps? That's what we're looking for. First, you look in the heap of form. Outer form? That's silly. I'm not in the tree. Inner form? My own inner form? Where does my inner form stop? Where does it start? Where's the me land inside there? Is it everywhere or is it in one spot? Okay. Second heap, the heap of Zorwa. Zorwa, feeling. Now that English word feeling, we've said this again, but it's important to hear it again. We usually say feelings. But when we say feelings in English, we tend to mean our emotions. And we're not talking emotions in the second heap. Those are in heap number 4. We'll get there. And then we also use the word feeling for tactile sensation. And that also is not Sorwa feeling. This feeling is the so subtle, instant response that we have to every experience that's either going towards it or pulling away from it or blank, they say. So feeling is that mental function of pleasant, thumbs up, thumbs down, or neutral. It really is such a simple way of explaining it. We experience something, and with the experience is right, thumbs up, thumbs down, pleasant, unpleasant, neutral. That can be divided in just those 3, or it can be divided into 5: pleasant, physical, unpleasant physical, or neutral, or pleasant mental, unpleasant mental. They don't distinguish between neutral physical, neutral mental. They just call it neutral. So we can have a negative physical, but a positive mental technically. And, all those different ramifications. But with any of them, first, there is this attraction or repulsion. And then hot on the heels of that comes a more specific judgment. Like if it's thumbs up, I want more. And then hot on the heels of that is, what am I going to do to get it? Thumbs down is, I want to be away. And then what am I going to do to get away? And so we see how these are like domino effect. And, they say there's 51 mental mental functions, and that two of them, this one, feeling, and then the second one, douche, discriminating between things, they could very well be in the heap of all the other factors that make us up. But Buddha singled them out to be their own heap because they are so instrumental in our perpetuation of our suffering and ignorance that he wants us to clarify them. He wants us to find them. And then they say there that our physical form, our physical experiences are the most obvious. And then our feeling is the second most obvious. And then our discriminating between things, the third most obvious. And then all the other factors that make us up, and then consciousness. And it just seems like, whoa, I don't think those are so obvious until we've learned to recognize them. And then maybe it's not so much that they're obvious as they are so frequent, they are so ubiquitous. There's constantly thumbs up, thumbs down, thumbs up, up, down, 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 right? It's going so constantly that probably we don't recognize it because it's so part of our experience. So we're wanting to increase our ability to be aware of it, because between those two, the feeling and then the discriminating, I like, it's mine, it's yours. If we can recognize what's going on and choose our response, not based on what those two say, but based on our growing understanding, that's where we start changing all of the feeling to thumbs up. Right? The point is not to stop feeling or stop discriminating. It's to be able to learn to create the circumstances where it's just thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up. And we know the punchline, how to bring that about is trying to help other people's experiences be thumbs up, even though it really isn't up to us whether their experience is thumbs up or not. But just the trying helps. So what? Feeling. It can be divided in those 3 ways. It can be divided in those 5 ways. It can be further divided into the pleasant, unpleasant, neutral about each of the objects of the senses. That gives us 18. So feeling is a big heap of stuff. Next one, douche. Douche is the discriminating in the sense of thumbs up, this is good. Thumbs down, this is bad. That's tall. That's short. This is red. That's blue. This is mine. That's yours. I like you. I don't like you. All of that is delineating things, giving things their qualities. We could call it judgments about things, but judgment is a little bit more complicated and involved. Douche is really very automatic. So again, it's this second troublemaker that comes hot on the heels with feeling. And then those two build the momentum for our reaction to things. When we can become aware of the discrimination that's happened, understanding that it was propelled by the feeling that kind of awareness buys us that fraction of a time to choose a different reaction. The reaction to it still comes up, but because our level of mindfulness about the sequence happening, we're able to go, I'm going to try not to react like that. And so even this not react and not do anything, Master Shantideva's bump on a log, is better than acting from the automatic reaction. And then eventually we're able to choose an actually different reaction, action, response. And then that's when we start moving more forward at burning off our habitual reaction and planting new habitual reactions that are positive ones instead of the ones that are perpetuating our misunderstanding. So we're not meant to ignore our discriminating between things. We are meant to discriminate wisely. Buddhas discriminate. They like Buddha paradise. They don't like hell realms. They act to perpetuate Buddha paradises and to help others bring them about. They don't act in ways that perpetuate hell realms. It requires being able to distinguish between paradise and hell realm. So we will still be having feeling, having discrimination, having all the other factors that make us up as Buddhas. Only then they'll be called the 5 Buddha wisdoms, which is a beautiful long story. How each of our 5 heaps perpetuated ignorantly, when our wisdom grows, those heaps are transformed and then perpetuated as these 5 wisdoms, 5 angel families, 5 Buddha families. We'll learn more. Mostly the discrimination that hurts us is that this is mine and that is yours. And I want to keep mine. And there are some things that are yours that I want, or I don't think you should have. Like, it's pretty gross, but I mean, gross as in ugly. But as ignorant beings, we've been there, done that. And the result of that ignorant belief is mine is mine, and I'm not going to share it with you. I'll share it with my family, but not anybody who's outside that circle. And that perpetuates the seeds, of course, for the struggle between us. When we understand the true natures of things, it allows us to use our feeling and discriminating, to use the things we discriminate about in order to collect the goodness we need to create our Buddha paradise, so that we can help everyone do it as well. Let's go on to number 4. Do J. Do J, often translated as compositional factors. And Geshe-la says, yes, that's what the words say, but that is not at all what it means. Do J means other factors, all the other factors that make us up, anything about our experience that doesn't qualify as form, that doesn't qualify as feeling, that doesn't qualify as discriminating between things, and doesn't qualify as consciousness. There are other things, like what? Call them emotions, call them mental afflictions, call them states of mind, call them mental experiences. Joy, jealousy, happiness, feel good, comfort, concern, like all of that stuff. It doesn't fit exactly anywhere else. So this, all the other factors that make us up, it is a huge pile. of stuff. And it's one of those places where we go looking for our self-existent me, having those experiences, right? To find that the self-existent me isn't there, but the me having those experiences is very much there. So they say
Lama,
there's, yes,
can I ask a question to that?
okay,
In that is difficult for me to differentiate the self-existent me, like when it's an emotion,
yeah,
then that means like there is the me feeling the emotion, that's okay. But then what is the self-existent me feeling the emotion that doesn't exist?
right. The me that emotion is happening to that didn't create it by how I created something similar in somebody else, right? The me that doesn't deserve it, the me that's suffering by that emotion,
Okay.
the me that doesn't like it, the me that's struggling against it, versus the me that's having it and is going to use it to respond in a way to perpetuate it if it's pleasant and to not perpetuate it if it's not pleasant, which doesn't necessarily mean it goes away right away, but we're using it. So then maybe our suffering from it reduces somewhat, even as we're still upset with it. Right? A self-existent me can't make that shift in reaction to the emotion because the self-existent me thinks I'm the, let's use just harshly say, I'm the victim of that
The
emotion.
victim.
And no, it's not my fault. And they did that to me. And right, our reaction to it is a struggle instead of using it.
Have you succeed in using it?
How to use it?
No, have you succeed? You.
Yeah, try and try again. That avoid being the source of that emotion in anybody else to the best of my ability. I'm feeling disappointed. What is it that makes me make somebody else feel disappointed? Can I find myself doing it and can I stop? Can I do the opposite? Wow, you're amazing. Wow, your eyes look so blue today. Wow, come up with something that helps somebody feel the opposite of disappointed in me. Right? It's creative. There's no like one way to do it. It becomes a creative life skill management, interperson management to see what works. What makes people smile, what makes people walk away from you feeling a little bit better instead of worse. And regardless of how I'm feeling at the moment, can I do that for them? Like that. Where were we? DJ, all the other factors that make me up. So they say in this category, there are 49 mental functions. But it's like, wait, we know there's 51 mental functions. Where'd the other two go? Sorwa and Dushe, feeling and discriminating. They get their own heap, so they're not in all the other factors. So what is in those 49 mental functions? There's more than that in Duje. It's not just the 49 mental functions, but they are all in there. So Geshe-la said, quote, Sarani, end quote, is in this heap of all the other factors that make me up. Sarani's body is in heap number 1. Sarani's feeling is heap number 2. So Ronnie's discriminating about the things that make the feeling is in heap number 3. So Ronnie's awareness of Sarani and the heaps and every experience is heap number 5. Quote Sarani doesn't fit in any of those other 4. The concept, the name and term, Sarani, it's not a physical thing. It's not what's doing the feeling or doing the discriminating. And it's not conscious. It's not a conscious thing, the concept, Sarani. So it has to be in this, all the other factors that make me up, because it doesn't fit in any of the other. The concept. Well, it's like, wait a minute. I experience a tree. That's a concept, right? Car, a car, the car, my car, your car. Like, aren't they all? Car is the concept, and then we think my car is the specific. But even my car is a concept, isn't it? Because there's nothing in the car that makes it my car. That has to be my concept that goes on. It's like, isn't everything actually in the end, except my awareness, in this, all the other things that make me up? And they say, lamas say, take it to the debate ground to sort it out. But that's what we do with all these little pieces that Course 13 is giving us. Really chew on it for the ramifications and see where it takes you in your investigation of what is this thing, me and my world? What is it really? Yes, Lisa.
So the cheese are part of this everything else that makes me up. Any other factor that makes me up. And also is the chi the same as a seed?
I don't think so, because the seed is just the potential, and the chi is the concept is the concept. It's a positive presence there. Does it come out of a potential? Absolutely.
So the
But
chi is
is
the
it the
result of the seed?
potential? Is the chi only the potential? I don't know. That's a great question. Take it to the debate ground. Right? I say the chi is the karmic seed. And then see if you can defend yourself from somebody who says, no way, that's got to be different. And see where it goes. You might be right. Right? And
But
by
then
way of the investigation, we'll come to understand cheese and Chadox better.
and then in the all the other factors that make me up, are the seeds also included there?
The seeds included. Are the seeds included in the heaps? I would have to say no, because the seeds are potentials. So they aren't the heaps until they ripen into their result. And then it's not just potential anymore. You've got the positive thing there. Do they come from seeds? Absolutely. But are they the seeds?
Plus, it implies that they are there waiting, which you always say is not like the mind only. Like there is a
Right,
refrigerator holding all the seeds.
right. So then
But no,
if
no,
any
no, but
one of
wait.
the heaps were the seeds, then the heap thing would be there in your refrigerator too. And it's like, ooh, that won't work.
However, you always do this and say we are just the happening.
Right,
And if we are just the happening, then where is that in the definition?
right. Cook it.
Ilhama.
So another thing Geshe-la said about our heap of other factors is that these other factors also means something that acts as a cause. So all of our heaps are factors. They all act as causes. They all perform functions. They are all working things. And these category of all other factors just means that they are factors of our experiences that don't fit in any of the other heaps. So it's addressing the fact that all the other factors we may think that means form, feeling, ability to discriminate, and consciousness, that those are not part of other factors, that they have some, I don't know what the implication of that would be, but Geshe wanted to point out that we could easily be misunderstanding that all of the heaps are things that are factors in what makes up me and my world, me and my experience. And all the other factors just means factors like all of them, but ones that don't fit anywhere else. You know, I've said that a lot. The next is namshe. Namshe means awareness. They kind of use awareness and consciousness interchangeably. And then we tend to think of mind and consciousness and awareness and the brain somehow as all similar. Although hopefully by the time we are at the level we're studying, we recognize that we're not talking brain when we are talking mind or consciousness. Our brain is a tool for our consciousness to connect to our sensory apparatus and information, but our brain is not our mind. Our brain is not our consciousness. Our brain is not what makes thought. It just seems like it's all happening up here because most of the input is coming from up here until you say the sense tactile, that's coming from everywhere. But somehow that gets relegated to the background. So namshe is our awareness. And then if we figure out, well, our awareness is not limited to our brain, well, then where the heck is our mind? Where did it come from? Why do we have it? Geshe-la asked all these questions. Why aren't we rocks? How do we know we're not rocks? What's the difference between being a rock and being a human? Like, where does our mind stop? Where does something other than our mind start? You know, look at an object across the room. Where is your awareness? Is it at the object? Is it behind your eyes? Is it somewhere between? So there are 6 types of consciousnesses. There's a namshe connected with each of the 6 senses. So there's the consciousness related to the information that the eye presents, colors, shapes, a consciousness related to the information the ear presents, decibels, sounds, consciousness of the nose, consciousness of the tongue, consciousness. They say the body, but they mean the skin. And then there's the consciousness related to thought. Like there is a consciousness that hears those thoughts. for me, mostly thoughts are mental words, but we can have thoughts that are not fully formed into an inner sound. We can know stuff without having to hear ourselves say the whole sentence, right? And I imagine different people have different experiences of their consciousness of their own thought. So all of those consciousnesses that are happening moment by moment by moment, the consciousness itself and that which it is conscious of, they are all changing things. They are all caused things, produced things, producing things, made things, and making other things. They are objects of existence. Positive things in the sense of presences, not positive in the sense of good or bad. But in our all existing things, we had changing things and unchanging things. So we need to look also at unchanging things as a place to go looking for our self-existent me, which is ultimately the task. And that's pretty easy. It's like, no, my me is a presence. It's a positive thing. Why would I bother going looking in the not unchanging category of things for my me? And so it's pretty easy to say I can't exist there and exist the way that I do. It's like, oh. Like that just gives me a glimpse into maybe there's a way that I do exist that I don't think or I can't grasp that I exist in a way that I don't. Never mind. I'm getting myself confused. So, Casual 7, we're talking about takpa, things that are takpa, existing objects that are unchanging. He says there's not much to say because all that's in this category is empty space, as in the place that objects occupy, and emptiness of all those existing things, which is the guarantee that we will reach Buddhahood someday. So, not an inconsequential thing. And then he says, and in this category, it's the fact that sound is a changing thing. The fact that Tucson is not Phoenix. And then he moved right on. It's like not much to say about Takpa because there's not much in there. And it's like, oh my gosh, there's a lot in there. Like for every existing thing that's not in Takpa, its true nature is in Takpa. Its fact that it's not from its own side makes up that heap of existing things that are Takpa. So, when he first presented that, don't worry about Takpa, there's not much in it. And then you finish the course for about the fifth time, and it's like, oh, wait a minute. There's a lot in there to investigate. And we'll do it as time comes. All right. So that's what we need to know about objects. It kind of seemed to slip over into subjects, but it didn't. That was all about subjects. And we'll pick up next class about Yilchen and the definition of Yilchen. I need to make a note. So thank you for hanging in there. This is slippery stuff. I admit, slippery for me too. Evening class. Oh, your logic. Okay. May I close class for those who need to go, Luisa, and then I'll stay and chat with you. So remember that being we want to be able to help. Believe it or not, we have planted amazing seeds through which we will someday help them stop their suffering forever. And that's an extraordinary goodness. So please, please, please be happy with yourself. And think of this goodness like a beautiful glowing gemstone you can hold in your hands. Recall your own precious holy being. See how happy they are with you. Feel your gratitude to them, your reliance upon them. Ask them to please, please stay close, to continue to guide you, help you, inspire you. And then offer them this gemstone of goodness. See them accept it and bless it. And then carry it with them right back into your heart. See them there, feel them there. Their love, their compassion, their wisdom. It feels so good. We want to keep it forever. And so we know to share it. The power of the goodness that we've just done. May all beings complete the collection of merit and wisdom, and thus gain the true ultimate bodies that merit and wisdom make. So use those 3 long exhales to share this goodness with that one person, to share it with everyone you love, to share it with every existing being everywhere. See them all filled with loving kindness, filled with wisdom. And may it be so. All right. Thank you very much for the opportunity to share. So whoever needs to go, please feel free. Louisa, after me.
Lama, in the unchanging things. So if there are the facts, the concepts are also unchanging, meaning Sarani, Luisa.
Right.
And the same with the cheese. Or do the cheese change? Because last time we talked and we said, you told me, or you told us, the chi can be a so abstraction level, doesn't have to be a specific the chi of a car, can be chi of getting to the place where I want to go. But that one then doesn't change over time
Right.
once I have it.
Right. Right. A chi would be an unchanging thing that is not eternal, right? It's either we either have the concept or we don't.
And if we have it forever or no? Can I run out of cheese? Because
I think so.
I
I
run out of
mean, you can't run
cheddars.
out of chi because you're always making new ones. But I think
No, but a specific one.
any given chi, I would think it could use up its seed. And maybe it's doing that like with every instant of a Chedok that's experienced of that chi. Maybe it's using up the chi. I don't know. I've never heard Geshe-la talk about it in that way. But if you
Because
have
that's
to
the
have,
connection that I make with the seeds, right? Like if the
yeah,
chi is the seed, is the
yeah,
potential of becoming, and it
right,
becomes into a shedrak.
right.
So
Then it has to be used up, but then made again
it's
by
another one.
way of your response to your chedok.
However, it's not the same
It's not the
chi.
it's not the same, it's not the same seed, but car still means car. Quote car is still quote car. Chedok is changing, changing, changing. But as long as it's quote car comes up as quote car, it's identical to what it was before, apparently.
So that means if I keep sharing rides with people, I will keep feeding my chi car,
Right.
and it will be the same identical one. No?
No,
Then it will be
no,
car
because
one, car two.
maybe 16 lifetimes from now, you have that chi that we would use the word car for because we need to discuss it. But 16 lifetimes from now, the word for the chi is
Personal helicopter.
right, completely different. So we can't be thinking of it as, well, car, quote car. But what we mean by quote car, which is this conceptualization of a thing that transports you,
Shedrak.
right? That makes us see what we call a car happening. That concept is complete. It's either there or it's not. So
And
unchanging.
that will mean there is no, this is very specific granular cheese. It's more on a higher level of a concept.
Yeah.
So in reality, there is no car chi. It's just that for us to understand the concept, then you and Geshe-la explain it with car. But
Right.
in reality, I have a chi called bring me to wherever I want. And just give an example. And that one manifests as the airplane or as the car or as the motorbike or as the, I don't know,
Right. Because there are multiple cheddars.
teletransportation.
Yeah. But to see a car means that there is a chi, a general, that makes you know that thing that you're looking at as whatever it is you've decided it is. It doesn't make the car there, but it makes us experience information as a car because we have that chi in our mind. So it's not so abstract that it could hang out over here while we experience a car over there and they're not related. They have to
Mm.
happen. They have to be related. Because without the chi car, it doesn't matter what you've got in front of you, you would not perceive car. Even as car is this abstract thing that you can't really describe without it being a specific.
Okay, so that means there has to be a chi of the specific chedraks that I am perceiving, so I can perceive the chedrak.
The chi has to be there for the chedok to be recognized in the way that we do. There are many chedoks for a given chi. So you can't really say it's the chi is the seed for every chedok, or you'd get billions of Toyotas out of the chi car. Each Toyota has its own seed ripening. And each of those seeds has to somehow be influenced by the chi car. Or else we wouldn't have chedoks.
What confuses me is in the class with the danchi and drunchi,
Gotcha, yeah.
drachi, then we say we want the danchi to move from drashi to danchi because
Yeah.
we want to have that seed of the experience of emptiness, perceiving
Right.
emptiness, for example. That gives me the idea that means the chi is the seed, right? That I need to plant to be able to perceive emptiness directly. I don't know, this is so confusing.
Yeah. You do need seeds to have chi.
But the chi itself is also coming from seeds.
I think so. But then it's a changing thing.
That's true.
I'm not sure.
But that's the debate also about emptiness, isn't it? That emptiness, everything is coming from seeds, but
Right?
emptiness also.
Emptiness
No,
also.
but then
That
cannot be
everything that
because
comes from seeds is empty of
doesn't know.
coming from itself. So by way of coming from seeds, emptiness is there. Can you say emptiness comes from its own seed? No.
But when we
But
say we are
emptiness
going to
does come
perceive,
from seeds. Well, then that means it's a changing thing.
I see. And when we say we perceive emptiness, it's not that we perceive the emptiness that is there waiting for us to be perceived. Is I perceive that I am empty.
And what I mean by I is suddenly starting to get slippery because we're looking at me and my world and finding that, oh my gosh, I can't really find the distinction between me and what I mean by my world. So when we have that direct perception of me, is it limited to this thing? Direct perception of emptiness of me, is it limited to this one little puny thing? Or is it the emptiness of all existence?
But I remember you said that one of the obstacles to perceive emptiness is the fear of disappearing.
That's right.
So that means the emptiness that we perceive is the emptiness of this me that we believe is self-existent. And
Right.
then in the process, we
Right.
realize that everything else is the same.
Right.
I am thinking, I don't know, because unfortunately I haven't perceived it yet.
Yet. Right. Good. Say yet. And rejoice in
Okay.
how you helped people come to perceive something that they didn't know before. Like
Yeah,
Valentina, how to
but
tie your shoes. Like,
yeah, this I have been thinking, can I plant perceiving emptiness directly without meditating? Because I don't meditate, unfortunately, it's something that I cannot, it doesn't stick with me.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
then even if I
You can
plant the
plant the
seeds,
seeds, but they're not probably going to ripen.
yeah. Okay, Lama, thank you. I will
Yeah.
keep thinking of this.
Thanks for thinking critically.
Sorry,
Anything
everybody.
else? Anybody else? Since we're hashing stuff out, it's kind of fun. Good, done. Stop recording. All right. Thank you for hanging in there.